Sometimes you put hurdles in front of yourself. The things that life is throwing at you can get in the way, pandemic and work and all these things. But there was also, I needed to have that self-belief. Is there room for a story like mine in a big way? I thought maybe I could just write this for myself and just share it with people around me. And it could just be this cute little thing. I had to let go of that expectation, but it needed to hit really big. But the turning point came when I won a Netflix award for an excerpt. And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, okay, we're onto something. Sometimes the universe sends you that clear sign of keep going on this path. So I listened.
All right, Queen. Wow. So you literally spent 10 years bringing the story to life. And now it's finally here. What kept you going in the quiet moments when I feel like most people would give up?
Well, first, I just have to say that I've been waiting so long for this to happen that sometimes it still hasn't even hit that this is me and this book is coming out. Because as you say, it's been 10 years. So to hear that from you, and just look, I have goosebumps all over. It makes it feel so real. And in these moments when you doubt yourself, you really need cheerleaders, just like what you're doing for me today. So it's so meaningful. Thank you. Glad I wore the waterproof mascara today. But to answer your question, I think at the beginning, I wasn't sure if there was a place in the world for this story. Would somebody be interested in reading a book that features Palestinian American family? Is the world ready for that? Am I up to the task of writing something like that? But then I think when something really comes from the heart and it's so authentic, and I couldn't help but write it. So in between all of the things that life threw at me, we had, losses in the family, job loss, raising children, pandemic, just life, gritty life.
Yeah.
The thing that
and you had
I
two small
returned
children
to-
at the time,
Yes.
too.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, they were under the age of 5, homeschooling on Zoom while I was trying to do my work meetings on Zoom. And it was just getting snacks constantly and managing, it was absolute definition of chaos. But I think in these moments, and I don't know if it's the same for you, you kind of go to basics and you turn to the core things that bring you joy and bring you peace. And for me, that's my loving family, but it's also writing. It's how I express myself. So it wasn't like a chore. I didn't have daily word count targets or deadlines that I hit, but whenever my eyes would get a little bit overwhelmed and my husband would see it and he would just say, go upstairs, quiet time to yourself, half an hour, do some meditation, write. And I would just write. These sentences would come out of me and it brought me so much happiness. And that is the feeling that I want readers to have when they read it.
So you have worn many hats. I mean, you're a banker, you were a journalist, a Googler working at Google. You were an executive and a mama holding down the fort for her 2 babies. When did you know that this dream had to become a reality? Because again, just with the many authors and entrepreneurs and visionaries that I've had on the show, braving something that, perhaps if we have listened to the critics to say, oh my gosh, it's taking you forever to write this book. Is it really a dream? Is it really going to happen? Maybe you should put that away. I can only imagine the amount of times people were telling you otherwise. And so why this story and what kept going?
I think part of it was my own work to not condition myself anymore to think that there was prestige in working for the brand or working for the man or however you want to put it. So of course, there's the financial aspect. We're raising 2 children in an expensive city. I want to have a certain standard of living, and I can't do that as a starving artist. So I needed to also work. We're a dual income household, as many people in Dubai are, and that's fine. And I was raised with a strong work ethic. It's one of the core family values. It's also very intrinsic to who I am. I love to work. I love to be part of a team and to get stuff done, and I love a good Excel sheet. So there's that Sarah, but I think we all have many sides to us. And like many artists and creatives, you have to have deep sense of self-worth and believe that what you're putting out there has real value. I think for a long time, I just thought writing was a fun hobby. It's like if you enjoy painting or you doodle all the time, you're an artist. But there needs to be that one switch in your mind of, wow, someone wants to pay money for me to do this. And that actually feels really nice. And now someone wants to pay a lot of money for me to do this a lot. Okay, that's when it can take over.
Yeah.
So for me, it needed to have some sort of financial backing for me to believe that this was something that I could put all my energy towards. And I wasn't sure for a very, very long time. So I stuck to the Google job. And when I'd go out to dinners and I'd say, yeah, I work for Google, it felt good. But then slowly started to feel hollow. This doesn't matter to me at the end of the day in the right way. And maybe you felt that way when you sold the dental clinics and you moved into the coaching work and all the beautiful things you do now to spread your messages.
Yeah, I feel like there's this 80-20, right? Where if you're doing more of the things that, keep you up at night and just make you come alive, and you're doing more of that, and that's kind of hedging more towards the 80% of your time. Maybe you first start out 20% you're writing, but then it becomes 30% of your days, 40% of your days, 40% of your thoughts, 50% of your thoughts. And then, incrementally, obviously, when you got the book deal, and for those of you who haven't listened to the episode with Sara, the very first episode, we are going to link it in the show notes because we actually talk about, your entire creative process, what were all of the building blocks and all the hurdles it took you to come and arrive to this point. And I think, we see this book, we see this incredible 6-figure book deal, dual book deal that is not heard of for a no-name author. So anybody that's listening to this, definitely, check out her very first episode with us. But I really want to go deeper into the elements of the book because you believed in your art, your craft so much that you're like, I'm just going to go for it. And I know we talked about before where you would, do it for a couple of years, put it back down, do it for a couple of years. And, this was literally your baby, your hobby that you were birthing. But what I'm hearing is like, there was no expectation. It was like, this is part of me that's fueling me. And I think a lot of times as women, as mothers, we do those things for us, but then our core is like our kids or our family or our work or our actual careers. And what was the moment where you first heard Mia's voice in your head? Was it like, all right, this has to be the character, because I'm thinking this book can actually become a screenplay. It can become the air version of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel because we need that. So, did it whisper to you over time? Did you have dreams about her, the character?
Let's manifest that screenplay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I think I may have spoken about this briefly the last episode, but the reason why comedy is there is because it's been a beautiful thread in my life. So my very first story for the New York Times was about the rise of stand-up comedy in the Middle East. That's how I met my husband. I used to have a severe fear of public speaking, so he made me do a comedy class to get over it. Like I would get clammy hands, I would get up on stage and then start breathing and have to rush off. So over the course of 6 weeks, I had to do this regularly and try and make people laugh. And while I'll never be a comedian, at least it helped me get over the fear of public speaking. And we go to comedy shows a lot. And you always notice that most of them are men. The majority of comedians are men. Even in the amateur circuit.
So true.
So whenever it's a woman, you kind of notice like, oh, look at her, and then she'd mention I'm a mom too. And you're like, oh, she's a mom too. So there's something there. It's interesting. So that's where Mia was born. I was like, okay, we're going to have an Arab female comedian in New York City, which is the home of some of the best stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Routines and clubs and people. So it's a real hub. So in a way, this was an ode to New York and its comedy circuit.
Because you did go to school there as well.
Yeah, I did graduate school there, and it was such a beautiful time. And there's a beautiful openness about New York, and everyone is from somewhere else. I felt so at home. I have an extra energy when I'm there that I don't in other places, and I wanted to write about it.
Yeah.
And comedy was the best way. So Mia was born there. And then The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel came out a few years later, and I stopped writing the book because I just thought my idea is done so perfectly. And they had it was kind of a period element and the costumes. And I just, when you have an idea and you see it executed so immaculately, and you just thought, I don't even want to compete with that. However, there's room for many female comedians. This one is Arab.
And there's a market
younger.
for it, as we talk about in marketing. There's a market for it. You already have that because it was proven before.
So it's market validation. So now suddenly the thing that was stopping me is what kept me going, because my agents, without my suggestion, were pitching it as The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel meets Crazy Rich Asians, set partly in New York, partly in the Middle East. So suddenly it had like links that worked. So it was a good thing.
Oh, I love that. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel meets Crazy Rich Asians. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
because of the cultural identity element. So that's where Crazy Rich Asians comes in. There's a wedding scene that's really beautiful towards the end.
Oh,
so it's that rom-com feel.
Oh, amazing. So, well, let's talk about your lineage, because you come from a lineage and culture that prizes discretion, respectability, yet it's been oppressed in so many ways. And, obviously in the last few years, let's talk about that and unpack that. How has that kind of held you back in a way? Or do you think that's what's propelling you even more now as the book is coming out?
I think the same. It's what you mentioned at the beginning. I've been writing this for 10 years. So while some of these themes might seem very timely or relevant or very now, because we're seeing Palestine constantly in the news, this has been going on for a really long time. And part of the reason why I wanted to write this is because as someone with Palestinian heritage, you're always asked these questions, and we are so much more than our trauma. There's also joy and hope and romance and ambition and the full spectrum of humanity that's never covered in the news. If you look up Palestinian woman and you click on the news tab in Google, and all of that is there. All of that is fact and a reality. It's me, it's my mother, it's my grandmother watching the news and then talking about it in these scared whispers at the dinner table. And I think this is my contribution of joy and hope so that my children might have a different experience, because heritage shouldn't be something that holds you back.
Right.
We all have something that we bring to the table that's interesting. And in my case, I hope that I'm leaving this legacy of joy, of empathy, of intelligent conversation, so that when somebody meets me, it's not guarded and it's not, prove yourself and what you think and your opinion before we decide to smile and relax. How can you have a conversation with somebody that is warm without having to prove yourself first? This is a position I found myself in quite regularly when I say I have Palestinian heritage, because at the end of the day, I am American.
Yeah.
I also grew up in Greece. I've also spent 20 years in Dubai. I'm a global citizen and I am so many things. I am a tapestry. So I have had the privilege of living in many different countries and traveling to so many different places. And while that makes me feel sometimes a little rootless, it also means that I can get along with anybody you put me in a room with, like we'll become besties. But I just want that acceptance and tolerance to feel reciprocated in a way with my children. I am who I am and I accept who I am, but it's about them and their generation.
Well, and what I'm hearing is, this book is a way for shedding so much levity and lightness and fun and humor to what the Arab American, the Palestinian experience could be.
Yeah.
Aside from all of the darkness, the grief, the oppression, the strife, the resiliency that, of course, it comes with. There's also the light parts, the shadow, but the light. And I feel like the light needs to be illuminated. And I feel like that's what you're doing.
Exactly. And on the surface, it is office rom-com where Mia is in love with her boss and she shouldn't be. And she's got her bestie, Katie, and they talk about that. And she does the stand-up comedy sets. But then she discovers her grandmother's diary that dates back to 1940s Palestine. And a big chunk of the book takes place back then. And it describes village life as people are being forcibly displaced, as there is that undercurrent of worry and tension and a changing country happening in the moment while the grandmother is 16 and in an illicit relationship with a British soldier. So it's got that depth, if you want to call it, the oppression and all of the strife and the horrible things. It's all there. However, it's all packaged in this way to show that these elements all helped Mia become who she is. And that at the end of the day, the only way that we can get along and be part of this world and embrace humanity and joy is to find a way to unite us and smile and laugh so you don't cry.
Yeah, and I love the duality in that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, you and I have talked immensely about, stand-up comedy because I've used humor so much in my life. I think I'm kind of funny, but I think I still have to do my 5-minute comedy set. That's like the one thing. So we'll do that together. But I also think that, yes, the stand-up comedians, they definitely had it right because they can infuse and alchemize. And that's what I see with your book.
Yeah.
For anybody thinking, is this going to be heavy? Is this going to be so much about that? No, it's literally a rom-com in a book, and you will be laughing hysterically. But as one of my favorite comedians, Hassan Minhaj, even Mo, you go to one of their comedy sets and you're laughing and you're crying and you're laughing and there's this cadence. And I want to really get into, the book at its heart, because this is the talk of the town, basically. And, the themes of the book is there's this double life that Mia is leading. We've got the Arab American identity, and comedy as a way of healing. Mia, your main character, tell us a little bit about her. She lives a double life. She's a fact checker by day, and she's a stand-up comedian by night. So what parts of her story mirror your own, and were some of the stories of your grandmother also infused into the book?
I think art is always personal. So there are elements of me and of my grandmother that are definitely there, but Mia is her own character, and I think we would be friends if she was a real human being. I wanted to have that duality represented really clearly. So by day, she's responsible. She's a fact checker, so she's very detail-oriented, respectable, and she just lives a quiet life with her grandparents in the Upper West Side. She lost her parents when she was young. So there's a little bit of that seeking joy and seeking a way to enjoy her life because she's been through some hardship. So I think there is a universality there. It's not just about her trying to understand her heritage. It is about trying to figure out the parts of ourselves that we share with people and the parts that we hide. And also anyone who's ever sought a creative pursuit. So again, if there's something that you really love to do and you keep getting drawn. So Mia keeps getting drawn to the stage.
Yeah.
She tried it once and she loved it. She found that she had this sassy side to her that seems to come out when she's on stage. Like I mentioned, I used to be terrified of public speaking. Mia has none of that. There's something about being in the spotlight that she's drawn to. It brings her into the light, parts of her into the light. So I wanted that strength. I wanted to showcase a young, modern Arab woman who is just funny and has these modern problems. She has a crush on her boss and she really shouldn't. She and her best friend work together at the same company and they're kind of competing for the one open role to get a promotion. So there are just these universal elements there. And as far as me, I mean, I went to Columbia journalism school. I did an internship really briefly while I was in New York. I didn't work there, but I've worked in media my whole life. So I knew what a role of a fact checker entails. So I could write authoritatively about it. So I wanted it to feel real. That this was really just an ode to Manhattan in a way. I got to write about the streets, the differences between the tidy Upper West Side tree-lined streets and then the kind of chaotic. There's a man dressed as a giant red Elmo at Greenwich Village, and guys calling out to you from bars, and that duality is represented even geographically. And I wanted to showcase that.
So beautiful. Now, what inspired you besides, you kind of growing up and going to Columbia for school to set up the story in New York's comedy scene?
Well, I was always a big reader growing up. So most writers will tell you this, right? Like I found my home in books and I love being in a bookstore, and it's very true for me. But I so rarely saw myself reflected in books. And actually when I first started writing stories, because this isn't something that I discovered as an adult. I've been writing since I was a child. I used to write stories when I was 8 and my sister was 5, bedtime stories that I would write and illustrate and then read to her. So this is something I've been just doing very naturally for a long time. Wow. But my characters would always be named Samantha and Elizabeth, and they would be blonde and blue-eyed, just like the Sweet Valley High twins, and Babysitter's Club, because that's what I was reading.
Totally.
And I didn't even have the vocabulary for what an Arab American girl might do. Or, if Brittany and Kelly are sitting there at lunch at school, is there going to be a girl named Khadija with them eating her kufta sandwich? Like, how do I make those work? So I think part of that is me wanting to write a story that I would have loved to read growing up. This is very much an adult fiction novel, but it is a coming of age story of somebody who's discovering who she is. So yeah, I just wanted to write a story that I would have loved to read.
Well, and this kind of goes into my question around, because you have young kids, I have young kids, and did you have that familial element of your parents kind of exposing you to writing as a kid? How do you impart that sort of skill set to your kids now, knowing that you did get lost in books, and now we have kind of an opposite thing with screens and all of the things? How do we, for those mamas who want to kind of expose our kids to the arts and away from all of that, is there something that you've done with Serene and Adam?
It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, every day, every single day, my kids look at my face and they say, is it iPad time yet? And I say, does my face look like an iPad? Like, why do you remember to constantly ask about it? So the struggle is real. We allow them to have some iPad time and screens in terms of TV pretty much every day, but we monitor it. We see what they're doing, and it's limited time. So it is hard. We live in a different time. However, I read a lot in front of them. So in the evenings, when we're sitting on the couch and they're doing their homework or they are watching TV or whatever it is, I will position myself in their line of sight. And I have a stack of my to-be-read pile that, as every mom, it takes forever for us to finish something because we have so much on our plate. But I'll just sit there quietly and I'll read. So they clock it. Another thing is I have books in every room in the house, like bathroom included. So,
Note to self, moms, keep the books in the bathroom too.
In their bedroom.
I do that.
In their bedroom, in my bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen. I have books everywhere. And sometimes when they come up to me, Mom, I'm bored, I'll just say, well, go ahead and grab one. So it's about just having it there, but without forcing it. So I never do the whole, if you read for half an hour, then you're going to get XYZ, because it makes it seem like this is a chore and there's a reward for doing something they don't want to do. Right. Instead, it's, hey, you're so lucky. I'm going to send you to bed early tonight so you get 5 extra minutes of reading time before bed. Oh, yay, can I get 6? So it's developing that pleasurable habit.
The pleasurable habit,
Yeah, and I would combine it with the arts in general. So in today's time, when there's so much emphasis on STEM education and on AI and building the robots, and I'm a big believer in the humanities, and both of my children have piano lessons. My daughter plays drums. She's 6 and she plays drums.
I love that.
And music is just one of these divine activities that uses all of your brain, all the different disparate parts of your brain in one go. And I just think this is my greatest gift to them, is to be able to read and to play some music. I don't expect them to do concerts, but learning these skills, I think, is meditative. You learn to just sit still for a little while and do the one thing.
And to really focus on that.
And that's what screens don't allow us to do these days.
And especially because of all of the dopamine hits that we're getting, it's, I feel like that ADHD is coming even closer and closer and closer, because everything is like grabbing your, the hook within the first 3 seconds of you opening up an app. And then you realize, wait, why did I open this up? Forgot I was looking for somebody's number. And here I am looking at my cousin's sister's wedding,
I was on the way here
later,
and I'm looking up the address. And then I open up Instagram and I'm looking up Reels. I'm like, why did I do that? I have to be here.
Well, that's their job, right? Their job is to keep us that way. So Arab American women don't often get to be messy, hilarious, heartbroken on the page. Now, why was it important that Mia got all of that?
I'm so happy you asked this question. And this is actually one of the most important things for me in writing this book. There is this model minority myth. So when I was in the US, I put that pressure on myself to be the top student and to never make mistakes, because you didn't just make it on behalf of yourself. You were inadvertently representing this entire society, and it was a lot of pressure. And so I went to Berkeley to college the year after 9/11. So you can imagine the Arab sentiment in the US at that time and the protests that were happening, and there were hate crimes on campus. And I had such difficult messaging. I had relatives telling me, lay low, you'll be fine, you're blonde. What does that mean?
Mm.
What does that actually mean? Hide yourself.
Yeah.
And
Assimilate.
this is difficult. Assimilate.
Change your culture.
Don't be who you are.
Yeah.
And who am I? Am I also the rah-rah figurehead for causes? I'm a human being. I, at the time, was a college student who was trying to keep up and try to understand how American boys like to date, because it was very different than Greek guys who are very explicit. Greek men will be like, oh, I see the moon in your eyes. And American guys are like, hey, you like to play tennis? And I'm like, is this flirting? This is what I was thinking about. But then there's that Palestinian heritage. And, are you saying this? Are you behaving this way because of what I saw in the headlines the other day? Like, well, what was in the headlines? What am I supposed to debate right now? It was a tremendous amount of pressure.
Oh, I bet. And to be able to come out of that model minority myth, because I feel like as, Indians, Filipinos, growing up in the States, we are meant to be the submissive and, top of the class and all of these things. And there's no room to not be doctor, dentist, lawyer, engineer, because you had to fit the mold. So I totally relate to, and I feel like so many of our listeners or viewers on YouTube relate to this. Your title, What Will People Think, is a loaded question in so many cultures. In the Desi culture, South Asian diaspora, we say, log kya kenge, right? And so how has your relationship with that particular question evolved over the last decade it's taken you to write the book?
So part of the reason I wanted to have this provocative question is to break that model minority myth. So a woman is allowed to make mistakes and to be flawed. And like you said, we never see that on screen or in books. I wanted a woman who was making bad choices and she comes out okay and she's still accepted and loved. So this is part of the theme. I wanted this to be a tongue-in-cheek look at the way that our parents would always tell us, are you going to study that? What are people going to think? Are you going to wear that? What are people going to think? Are you doing that interview for that job? What are people going to think? So it's always every choice you make has to come with this qualifier of, but you have an entire set of people that you need to worry about their expectations too. And there is a difference in the US and the way that cultures live outside the US in terms of it is a very collective society.
Yeah.
It's not as individualistic. So you don't have that freedom to maybe do exactly what you only want to do, but it also has its benefits. Here you have a wider net of support, and I don't think one is better than the other. It's just different ways of living. And I think that goes back to what I was saying before about having lived in so many different countries. I can appreciate both styles.
Right.
So part of it was that there was the cultural expectation for yours. But then the other part was about the stand-up comedy. So it's really hard to put yourself out there because stand-up comedy is rooted in airing your traumas and your insecurities in a funny way.
Right.
So you'll go to any amateur comedy night and someone will stand up and be like, yeah, well, I've got to lose a lot of weight. Or, whatever you see, like I have a giant nose. Can you guys see me from all the way in the back over my nose? So they're sharing with you their vulnerabilities. And I think this is the sharpest way to kind of break that worry of what will people think? Because, hey, I'm just standing
just right here,
bearing my whole soul.
It's so true. When I wrote my first line of comedy, it was like, yes, I know that I look like I'm 10 years old, but actually I am a doctor, actually, no, a dentist, so it was like you had to get those punches in. And
mine was the same. Mine was, don't worry, they didn't send the intern. It is me.
Sweet. Yep. Well, I actually want to go into you personally and the woman behind the words that have so poignantly kind of entered this era of, as a novelist for you, you call Dubai home for 20 years and your roots stretch from Palestine to Greece and the US. So what do you personally define as home?
It's funny because every year when my children have International Day, we have this big debate about, well, what should they represent? Because we really are from all over. But I feel like different stages of my life, I lived in different places that were perfect for my timing. So Greece was just an idyllic childhood. So think entire summer spent on islands in
Beautiful.
Aegean Sea. So safe, great food, you know, a very beautiful childhood. And then college and grad school in the US. So that driven time, prove yourself, explore what you're good at, that American ambition. I was there for it. I was ready and I loved it. And I excelled. It was wonderful. And the cities where I lived, so being in California, being in New York, they're so exciting.
Yeah, the
for
best of
different
both
reasons.
worlds. Yeah.
I think so. It was wonderful. And then as a journalist, having this deep love of discovery, I like to see new things and I like to document them. So I got a job offer to come to Dubai and I didn't know anything about it. And I got to grow up with the city. So I came as a young, early 20-something, wide-eyed, bright-eyed. And now I have a beautiful career and a husband and children and a set of incredible friends, including you, who are my support system. And I go to the beach in the mornings and I do my walking meditations. And I just think I'm so blessed to be in this country that has given me so much. Here's the city. And I hope to be able to give back because Dubai is marvelous. It's safe. If you are good at what you do, you can really shine. So yes, I did get an incredible book deal and it was a long time coming. And the way that the city has risen up to the occasion to help me celebrate it, it feels like it's become a Dubai moment, which is so humbling and validating. So I have a podcast on the Emirates airline. It's called Emirates World. I mean, imagine a national airline carrying your voice and your story to millions of people.
That doesn't happen to everyone. So that's a testament of your work in reshaping culture and exposing the stories that need to be told.
Thank you. But it's also a testament to Dubai raising up women who achieve in the right way. Right? It's not just me doing this. They're helping to carry the story. They sent me, Dubai sent me to South by Southwest in your former hometown. Austin, Texas. We swapped. I know. We swapped. And I got to do a whole thing there. And it's just, the city's been really generous with me.
What did you have to unlearn in order to write the book?
Oh, so much. That's why it's taken me 10 years. I was 30 years old when I started writing this. And elements of the book, certain scenes, I wrote when I was in New York, when I was in my 20s. So you could argue it's actually taken more than 10 years in a way.
Wow.
There was a lot. I think sometimes you put hurdles in front of yourself. So we were saying before that the things that life is throwing at you can get in the way, pandemic and work and all these things. But there was also, I needed to have that self-belief. So I was telling you before, is there room for a story like mine in a big way? I thought maybe I could just write this for myself and just share it with people around me. And it could just be this cute little thing, the way that someone at a dinner party might pull out a guitar and sing a song. And that was it. It's tiny, it's fine. I had to let go of that expectation that it needed to hit really big. But the turning point came when I won a Netflix award for an excerpt. And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, okay, we're onto something here. Sometimes the universe sends you that clear sign of keep going on this path. So I listened.
Well, it's insane because your very first interview with us, actually, people loved it. It was one of our top episodes. Top 10 episodes for the quarter, actually. So, it told us a few things. It told us that, well, one, people are curious at pursuing their creativity. Two, that no matter what people will say or think, I think the time is ripe. And now that never before, we've been given so much opportunity to really go after our dreams, no matter how long it takes. And I think that was so resonant for so many people. And also, I think because of our audience being mothers and in the motherhood journey, and the fact that we lose ourselves, the fact that we put our dreams aside for many, many years. And now your kids are a little bit older, but they're not much older than mine. We still have younger children. How has motherhood influenced your writing voice? And is it shown in the book? Have you been able to compartmentalize that?
I think writing is so lonely for a long time. So again, I would write this book in these quiet moments in between everything else that I had to do, including motherhood and work and everything else that life brings to the table. So to hear that people are actually connecting with me and with the story is just the best compliment. So thank you for that. I think motherhood, oh gosh, it's like a big tidal wave that I wasn't ready for. And I had to learn how to swim while I was in the middle of it. So we got married, and then a year and a half later, got pregnant right away. And we knew we wanted children. We were planning for it, but you are always told that it's going to take time. And I wasn't mentally prepared for it to happen as quickly as it did. And then my son came bursting into the world, literally like 2-hour labor. Everything was fast.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
wasn't mentally, I couldn't process it as quickly as it was happening. And then that first, the fourth trimester, they call it, after the child comes, is so difficult.
So hard.
And I was used to being somebody who is very active at work, and I have my social circle, and I'm the most extroverted writer you'll ever meet. And suddenly had to be at home all day with a baby, and I really struggled with that. And I wouldn't say it was postpartum depression, but it was more of, how can I still be that Sarah and be this Sarah, because I have something that I've never loved so much in front of me, and I just want to do this all the time, but can I also do a bit of that somehow?
Totally.
The 80-20, how do I do this? So I think there was a bit of learning. I was the first in my friend circle to have a child, so a lot of them would go out for dinners and things, and I suddenly wasn't getting invited, and these silly little things.
I know it makes sense, especially when you're a new mama. You're like, we're not friends anymore. I'm not full anymore because I'm in this like period of. It's a tough time.
And managing work, and then having the second child and going through all of that again. So, and then the pandemic hit. So it was very tricky for me for a couple of years to prioritize writing in any serious way. So I would try and get to it every now and then, but there was no consistency.
But I think that you're sharing something so pivotal. And I think from, thousands of women that we serve, at the Brave Table community, the thing that I hear the most is braving motherhood in a way that, well, it's not going to look like how it looked like beforehand, where you were chasing you were goal getting and all of these things. But for you to say you're carving moments, even maybe sometimes it was 5 minutes. And the fact that you can have this pause even during motherhood, because I think for so many years you were type A, goal getting, but then this book took 10 years to birth. And so I want to frame this question for anybody who's thinking that, that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Because perhaps it didn't, it didn't sail yet. It's just docking. And it's maybe docking for a little bit of time, but, as the kids kind of settle and you settle, there could be a different way to explore your, artistic abilities, I think.
Yeah, and I think children help you prioritize life better. So your time is very, very precious. Your attention is really precious. So if you're going to spend it on anything, it's going to be worth it, So it just made me more intentional with the story that I wanted to tell and why. And the biggest theme of this is familial love. So for me, that's about my children. So they really brought out the best in me and helped me tell this story the way it needed to be told. And in terms of the timing, sometimes I wonder, if I had published this 10 years ago and I was already an author now, how my life would have turned out differently. But I think it's coming out at the perfect time for me and for the world to receive it. I think there's a lot of curiosity about Palestinian heritage and identity. And, well, why is there so much conflict? And what does it actually mean for some of the women who are sidelined in these conversations today and then?
So I know that after this episode, everyone is going to not only get the book, but also follow you. Where can we actually get the book? Where can we follow you?
The book is available for pre-order on Amazon, and the Audible version is also available on Audible and on Amazon.
Did you read it?
I didn't read it, but they got an Arab American comedian to narrate, and
Oh,
she
no
is
way.
absolutely brilliant. Her name is Reem Edan.
Okay.
And when I listened to the audition clips, she made me laugh out loud.
Okay.
So she does a whole bunch of accents. She brings such a beautiful energy to it. So if you're the type of person who prefers to listen to a story rather than read it,
That's me.
I couldn't recommend it more.
Okay.
And the reviews are rave reviews right now.
You've had some incredible reviews from some really big names.
Yeah.
Mo, Amir, the comedian, just gave you a shout, and some really phenomenal people. This is just going to be so powerful. All right. So this is our igniting spill the chai round. So as short as you want. And the first thing that comes up, what's the most Arab thing about you?
My eyeliner.
What? Your secret writing ritual.
I write after I've worked out. I write best after I've exercised.
Biggest misconception about Arab women you wanted to smash in the book.
That we don't speak up. We probably talk too much.
The boldest risk you've ever taken.
Publishing this book
Yes.
in today's world, probably.
If your younger self could read your novel, what would she say?
She would say, I knew you had it in you. I'm so proud of you. Let's do this. I'm ready for the movie deal.
Yes. Finish the sentence. What will people think if I...
Write a second book.
Ooh, amazing. Sara Hamdan, what will people think? It's out on shelves and you're probably already grabbing the book. Please share this with a friend, a family member. Bring this to your schools, your girly groups, and your universities. This is the book that is going to be that summer read, I believe.
Thank you. Your support is just everything. I mean, the previous podcast and this one, this is what makes me so happy to put my work out there. It's this kind of reception. Thank you.
Of course. So much love, and I cannot wait for everybody to experience your joy and your magic. Until next time.
So much love to you.
Wow, we are back on the other side. Okay, so if you are buzzing from this conversation, go ahead, go to Amazon. What will people think? Make sure you share this episode with a friend, a family member, somebody that needs to be a little bit more brave in maybe challenging yourself to read and pick up a fiction book. I will link her book in the show notes for audiobook, for Amazon, and everything else. You can get all of the juicy details. You can go ahead and follow her writing on Instagram at by Sara Hamdan. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and give us a shout in the comments. What did you love most about this? Tag us at The Brave Table or at Neeta Bhushan on Instagram. And don't forget to be just a little bit more brave in your actions, in your relationships, and in your life. I will see you soon.
You know I've got so much more in store for you. So if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.